Welcome to the Finance Marketing Podcast, a show that empowers finance professionals to market their businesses in ways that feel good and actually achieve results. I'm your host, Hillary. I've been working with folks in financial services to develop marketing strategies that work and create results-oriented marketing content since 2020. And I've learned a lot about what works in finance marketing, what doesn't work, and where financial services pros get stuck. Join us each Friday as we explore real, effective ways to market your finance business and connect with folks who truly embody your ideal clients. This week, I am sitting down with Karen Creighton, a coach who specializes in working with financial advisors and their teams. With over 2 decades in the financial services industry as an advisor, a team builder, and a practice manager, Karen understands the reality of running a financial advisory business. She brings real-world experience and hands-on support to help advisors grow practices that reflect their values, serve their clients exceptionally, and position them for long-term success. Karen co-creates with her clients to build structure, solve pain points, and elevate their practices to align with the future that they want. Now, Karen has over 20 years of experience in this world. And so we talked about the changes that she's seen over time and really focused in on this fundamental shift that advisors have participated in, going from really product-based sales to relationship-driven advisory work, and how this evolution really requires advisors to completely rethink how they position and market themselves as partners in their clients' lives. So we dive into why clarity around specialization and vision is so critical for growth, especially for advisors who want to move beyond referral-only business development. Karen also shares practical insights on building the operational infrastructure and the systems that make consistent marketing execution actually possible, from delegating work to leveraging data and CRM tools for your outreach. Now, I love that Karen emphasizes there's no single right way to build a practice, but that scaling successfully requires advisors to make really intentional decisions about where they're going and what they need to put in place to get there. So if you're a solo advisor wondering what your first hire should be, or if you're leading a team that needs better systems, this episode can give you clarity on the business foundations that support effective marketing and sustainable growth. So without further ado, let's dive in. Karen, I am so happy to have you with me today. How are you?
I'm happy to be with you as well. I'm great.
Good. Can we start our conversation off if you could just tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
I would be glad to. I'm before you as a coach. I specialize coaching financial advisors, and the reason I ended up in that position, in 2004, I joined the financial industry in an advisory capacity. I ran my own practice for 6 years, and I look back at all the things I didn't know that I help people with now. But for me, Hillary, family took over. I've raised 5 kids with my husband, and those 5 include triplets, and life got very busy. I was pushing all my appointments to evenings, to weekends, and I wasn't running my practice efficiently. So I sold my blog to 2 advisors who are with Sun Life. One's a Hall of Fame advisor. I had the absolute pleasure and joy of working with terrific advisors from that time. So I helped them build their practice, and I've helped other advisors build their practice. So I really developed a lot of skill in practice management, teaming, the evolution of practices, scaling practices, and launched my own coaching practice about 5 years ago. So delighted to be with you today.
Yes, this is lovely. And as we kind of jump into our conversation, you and I have talked a little bit about just how much and how quickly things have changed in the past 5 years, in the past 10 years, definitely in the past 20 years. You said something before I hit record that I thought was interesting. You said, 20 years ago, we didn't really have marketing strategists like you, and now we do. Why do people need marketing strategists? And I think the same is almost true for coaches as well.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of advisor coaches that have a lot of people who come to them needing coaching. And so I'd love to hear from your perspective what you think has changed and why people really need to pay attention to what has changed.
They do. You even get on a lot of corporate teams now, practice management departments, divisions. There's a lot of education. There's a lot of learning, internally even. So even internal coaching has really, really taken on. But I joined the industry over 20 years ago. And when I joined, the people who trained me, actually, this is how old I am. They used to refer to themselves or try to break the habit of calling themselves agents.
Mm.
And they built practices on very transactional sales. And I think that's, one of the biggest differences is that we've gone from a commodity based existence where we're moving into relationship based. We're moving into more complex needs. People are coming to advisors and they want them to interpret their information. They want them to provide guidance. They want them to manage the financial complexity of their life. So all those years ago, it was a much simpler world. And I think the thing that surprises me is how often, although we've had all these changes and we can talk about them a lot, why are advisors slow to manage their practices differently? So there's this whole spectrum of going from being a solo practice and some advisors who continue to be a one person show. I mean, don't get me wrong, they do well. A lot of them are making terrific money. So that's how a lot of practice is developed once upon a time, and they might have some admin help, but then you move into the small team practice where you have an advisor with admin support. They may be specializing, they may be selling more because they're leveraging their time. Then you move on to the ensemble practice and the enterprise practice, And the ensemble practice, you might have several advisors, and there's different challenges with each. Things like succession planning. We never talked about that before. Who their market is, how are they building visibility online? That's an area that you work in. So with all of these changes, I think advisors are increasingly challenged to become business people and to not just have a book of business anymore, but to actually be business people and to give thought to how they're creating and communicating their value to their client base. So I think that's the biggest change. What people are looking for, they're looking for more. They're looking for more skill, more guidance. And then how has the industry responded to all of that?
It sounds to me like the advisor's job has gotten a lot harder in the past 20 years.
I think so. Certainly more complicated. They're wearing more hats. And if you take a look at the evolution of financial planning alone, I mean, you have fee planning, you have integrated planning as part of what's involved in a commitment to an advisor, what they're going to do for you. But people weren't doing financial planning before. I mean, people weren't taking designations to the degree they are now. I just read an article. I'm trying to think of who put it out. It was in my feed. It was about estate planning, and advisors are not talking to their clients about estate planning. And there's quite a gap there. And that I think it was something like 38% of people who were interviewed said that they need estate planning. So even the role of financial planning continues to get more complicated. We used to start with what we called an insurance needs analysis. How much insurance do you need? Then whether you moved into wealth, and then moving into financial planning. Is it a retirement needs analysis? Is it a full estate plan? But a lot of clients are looking for full comprehensive services. And then, the advisory world is responding at different rates. I mean, some advisors are really out there and they're handling very complicated aspects of the market. They're handling the business, small business market, medium business. They're integrating what they do with their value with their clients' accountants, with their clients' lawyers. And it's just fascinating to me what once was like the agent business, and that's many years ago. Financial advice and guidance and skill, it's completely changed and evolved. So advisors, we talked about it getting more difficult. They're dealing with marketing unless they hire you. They're the CFO, especially if they have a team. They're dealing with HR issues. They're dealing with business development, creating the vision. They may still be responsible for pipeline development and the star salesperson. They're having to think about value and being an operational specialist and systems and processes. And it's just so completely different to how it was. They're
It
business people.
Right. It seems to me almost that based on what clients today expect now from financial advisors, It's probably very difficult for solo financial advisors to stay solo for very long if they do want to grow.
If they want to grow, I think you just said the key words, because there are a lot of, I call them lifestyle practices. So there are a lot of advisors out there, they've grown over time and they can stay as they are. That's great. But if they want to grow, I mean, clearly they run into a capacity problem. There's only one of them. And then if they really want to grow, a lot of individual advisors need to get out of their way and they need to take a look at their habits or things that are limiting their growth. You have advisors who've grown by referral only. That's great. Do they want, what are their outreach strategies? What are the microphones they're using to grow? You have advisors who are quite happy to wake up in January because they've built wonderful practices and they're making a certain amount of money. But I think it's very key if they want to scale, they have to change what they're doing to really take a look at how to do that. But secondly, even those lifestyle practices, they can use improvement always because it's going to increase their value when they take a look at getting out of the business.
What are some things that you have seen as advisors are starting to grow? What are some of the things that they need to stop doing that has been working up to this point, but are not going to work to get them to the
Yeah.
next point?
I think the biggest thing, well, there's two. They have to have a vision. Where are they going? Are they going to be everything to everyone, or something to everyone, or everything to someone? Are they going to specialize? When I talk to a prospect or new client, I'll ask them, what does success look like to you? Because their answer is really important. Do they want to be out of the business in 5 years? Do they want to have 5 advisors in 5 years? What role do they want to play? So they really need to take a look at what they want that future to be. And everyone has a different answer. So accordingly, that's great. But I think one of the biggest challenges is then, how are you managing your time? What are the things you're doing? What are you delegating? So if you want to grow, you can't not even micromanage, because sometimes they're doing these things out of habit. Are you doing your own trades? Are you booking your own appointments? Like, these are things that you need to bring admin or operational support in to do. So you have time to be the strategist, to work on the business. Maybe you're the rainmaker. Maybe you're developing the pipeline. But also, increasingly, you need to spend more time with your clients. So you can't do all those things. So you need to some extent, get out of your way, but take a look at who would you hire next and why? Who do you most need? And I find historically we talked a lot about hiring admin support. And one area people are starting to look for is someone who can come in and manage data. That person might work on outreach, they might run campaigns, they might even do some social media work. But, the metrics of your block, where's 80% of your revenue coming from? What do you know about your block? What are your touch points? All of these things are data-based or things that you can run and manage in your CRM. So who's the next person you need to hire once you know where do you want to take your business in the next 3 years or the next 5 years? And what does success mean to you? I mean, there's a great conversation with just those questions alone.
Right, absolutely. I was going to ask you, what typically do you see as being who is the first team member that a solo advisor might hire? But it sounds like it's different for everyone.
It is. Generally, that first hire is someone to help on the admin side. There's a debate on whether, people who come on to the team need to be licensed or not licensed. There's different compliance requirements for that. But yeah, you need to be able to download some very basic but important things like calendar management and booking your appointments. If you can, free up 2, 3, 4 hours a week alone for that, you're going to have a more productive week. Preps, post activity, CRM management, there are a lot of the very, very key fundamentals you can bring somebody in to help you with.
One thing that I've been trying to do in my business as I scale is I've been trying to really track my time and see where am I spending a lot of time, and
Good for
that has
you.
been helpful in making decisions about what to delegate and who to delegate to. Is that something that you recommend that advisors do?
I do, and most advisors don't like the process. So we do a time audit. I break time down. We talk about this person to 4, 5, or 6 categories, and try and get them to do it in half-hour increments. And even if they do it over 2 weeks, they're going to open their eyes. They're going to start to see a few things, where their time is going, and then we talk about what on that list do you not need to do, or are you putting time into the priorities that you've identified because they're all related to your goals? But secondly, there's things you learn too about capacity. Okay, here are tasks and they're taking 6 hours a week. Maybe I do need to bring in more admin or operational support. And you learn lots of things like, what do you like doing? What time of day do you like doing it? What's your energy level like during the day? And then we work on building that ideal calendar. But I like using, I guess it was called the Eisenhower matrix once upon a time. Stephen Covey sort of revived it in his work, or Stephen Covey. But I mean, Eisenhower was a 5-star general and obviously president as well. He was a very organized person. So he developed that most important, most urgent
Mm.
matrix, and then urgent, not important, and then like the fourth quadrant's not urgent, not important. And I work with that with people because it's a good tool for identifying your priorities, and you can use it with the time tracker to just stand back and say, where is my time going
Mm.
versus where should it go? And once you get through that process, then we take a look at how do we work that into your calendar.
So once you have a plan for advisors and they're starting to work on these things, what do you see as some of the biggest obstacles that they're running into?
I think going back to wearing all the hats, sometimes I'll work with advisors and they're not doing the homework. So, I mean, I'm not a taskmaster, but we'll come back to, okay, these are things we're doing. They're tools, that we're going to work on so that you benefit from what you learn by using these tools. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Advisors can plan their day, work the plan and plan to work and work the plan, but there are always interruptions, right? So, we understand that. But there's a lot of learning in there. What is being available and what's being accessible. I'm
Mm.
surprised sometimes by the advisors I run into. We have the sense that we have to take care of our clients. We have to take care of our clients. So I'm going to read my email in real time. I'm going to look at my phone. I'm going to look at my LinkedIn. And a lot of things, these things are really interruptions. And if you liken the role of a professional advisor to an advisor in someone's life, be it a lawyer, be it an accountant, I often use those examples and say, these people are immediately accessible. You will reach them, within a 24-hour period, but do they have to be available at all times? So there's some of the things we work on because they've built their blocks by being responsive, but that isn't necessarily strategic as they start running businesses.
Right. Do you find that one of the things that you work on with advisors is figuring out if they need to let certain clients go?
They do. I think most advisors have fired a client. And if you look at the 80/20, the Pareto principle to begin with, like where's 80% of your revenue coming from? And the answer is usually 20 to 30, 35% of their block. Well, right away, there are many advisors out there who have too many clients, and there's a tendency to want to keep clients. And it can be so freeing to bring in a developing advisor to mine and take over, 50% of your block. And they realize the revenue isn't worth the effort. So, from that point of view, I'm always encouraging people to let go of some of the bottom of their client base, either keep it internal with other advisors or sell it. But that can be so freeing and to really allow you to focus on the clients whom you do your best work with and perhaps who you enjoy the most. And then you get into that whole question of too niche or not too niche. But still, if you develop and people are expecting deeper relationships from advisors.
Mhm.
So there's always that tendency in business to spread yourself too thin. So I'm all about scaling the practice, right sizing the practice is what we should call it.
What do you mean by right sizing the practice? I love that.
Well, how many households can you manage effectively? How many do you want to manage? Are they insurance? Are they wealth? Are they holistic? Are they, people you're planning for? Are they high net worth? What does your practice look like? For some people, usually higher net worth, where they're almost like a family practice, where they're getting very involved with the family and the beneficiaries, and they've really become that trusted financial advisor. I know some advisors who have 100 households, and that keeps them very busy, and it's quite lucrative. I run into some advisors who have 600 and 800 households, and I just think, okay, this is where we have to start. You can run into an advisor who said, well, I have 500 households and I'm going to see them all 3 times a year. And I sort of go, well, let's take a look at the math. So that's 3 times 500 households. So that's 1,500 client appointments. Then you say 2 hours per appointment, prep face to face or virtual notes. You're going, well, that's what are we saying? 2 hours, 1,500 appointments. That's 3,000 hours a year. And they don't look at it that way. And you say, okay, you might be working 50 weeks and you might be working, let's say 40 hours a week. So you've got 2,000 hours and you're telling me you're going to spend 3,000 seeing this large base of 500 households. So right away, it's a great conversation because you need to be really clear on what you want to do and what is the strategy, because that's ineffective. So
Right.
there's a capacity problem. If they're all great clients, you need another advisor. You may be over servicing clients who don't warrant your time and attention based on revenue, or you're just spreading yourself too thin and you really need to right size that practice to what you want it to be. And I find too many advisors are feeling overwhelmed. And when they get into that zone of the right size practice, knowing whom they serve best, knowing they have the systems and the processes, they start to fall in love with their practice again. This is what I often say: I make financial advisors happy. I can help you bring the frustration down, the overwhelm down, and get to that point where revenue and satisfaction feel good again.
I'm glad I asked you that. I love this notion of the right size practice because
Yeah.
I think I see a lot of people, especially on LinkedIn, talking about how as if growth is just always the goal. We just grow, 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 grow. But I don't think that's true.
Not always. And again, it's growth with the right clients, with the ideal client. I'm a big proponent of knowing and defining your ideal client. But I was working with an advisor over the last 2 years, actually, and she celebrated her 36th year in business, and she's a successful advisor. She hits the KPIs that take her to conventions and elite status and whatever. So she's a terrific advisor. Started off selling a lot of insurance, a nursing background, which is interesting. So she treats people very holistically, the same way you would assess someone as a nurse. She brought that forward into her practice. She's terrific at what she does. And one day when we were talking about working together, Karen, I don't need more clients. I don't need more growth. And it's like, well, what do you need? I need to love what I do again because I'm thinking of getting out of the business. So then you dive into that. Why? Well, you have too many clients. You are in reaction mode every single day. So what we did was move somebody from an admin role into the advisory role, did a lot of training. So she's now mining and taking care of all the service needs on like the 2 lower segments, and the advisor's working on the 2 top segments. So she's been able to bring in more money. We did a lot of work focusing on our wealth system, on her presentation materials, her portfolios for confidence. She's working with high net worth people, but wasn't talking to them enough about wealth. And interesting, she's continued to have a terrific year this year in insurance because she's talking to people about estate planning. She now has the time to go back to her larger clients and talk about estate planning, selling a lot of par permanent insurance policies, larger premium. Oh, you have money in your non-registered account. Why don't we take some of that? And here's this investment class, like using insurance as an investment class. Well, she's having a terrific year. She's enjoying it. And she didn't need new clients. she needed to get rid of the demands on her time for the clients who didn't need, her expertise. So
Mm-hmm.
that was huge, and she couldn't see it or didn't know how to start or take steps towards it or train someone or just really understand where her happiness comes from. So
Mm-hmm.
36 years in the business, and she's on my mind because I had a lovely note from her the other day addressing how much happier she is working in the right market. And I think
Wow.
I love hearing things like that.
Absolutely. And I think that that is the value of having a coach, something that you just said. She took a team member who was working on the admin side that she trusted, that she loved, I'm assuming that had been in the business for a
Hmm.
while,
Hmm.
and basically promoted that team member and trained her up to be an advisor. And I think that's something that sometimes as business owners we miss. How could I leverage the existing team that I have and help me in this new way instead of having to go find someone perfect who I don't trust yet to take
Yes.
care of my clients. And I think that's just,
Yeah.
just something that an outside perspective can be really helpful for.
And team building's quite a challenge for advisors right now. Finding people who can handle the advisor support role, and this is a role that is increasingly commanding, higher pay in
Mhm.
in the industry. I mean, you're getting, a lot of times it used to be this is an admin role. And I mean, it is support from an admin point of view, but it's about systems, it's about taking care of clients, it's about seeing the patterns, it's about a second set of eyes. Like this is increasingly a more complex role.
Mhm.
And people are having trouble too finding developing advisors to come in and work on their teams. And
Mhm.
that's a challenge. So, do you need marketing help? There's Hillary. You need coaching help? There's Karen. I bring an HR person in on recruitment lately because those roles are different and we can't access, well, I suppose you can through some job boards, but do you want to figure out how to access past candidates and do your own recruiting, or do you want to bring somebody in to do that? So
Mhm.
this is, again, one of those markers of evolution in the business. So for a lot of advisors, like even technology, it's changing so rapidly. So, what technological tools do you have? What's helping you? AI has helped a lot of people with notes. Some organizations won't allow an AI note taker for compliance. Some will. Even the role of compliance has changed so much. A lot of advisors are feeling the challenge and what it takes to be compliant in all manners so that if you are audited, you're above board, you have the systems. Even just that alone, different jurisdictions have different requirements, but documenting notes now. And so you're in a meeting and you might be opening 6 accounts, or maybe you're reviewing 7, or maybe there's a financial plan. I know a lot of advisors will have somebody with them from their team, a colleague, to do notes because it's getting so complicated. So this is what I mean. There's just so many things. The role of planning is changing. The product shelf is changing.
Mm.
We talked about insurance for business owners. The product shelf keeps changing. I mean, critical illness was a new product once. So I think advisors have to really stay on top of things. Certainly from a wealth point of view, the product shelf is really changing as well. I've noticed that a lot of advisors enhance their referability, in terms of what they can talk about. Tax, what are you qualified to talk about, but helping people keep more of what they earn. People want to feel value when they meet with an advisor. They want to feel you're helping them.
Mhm.
So the whole world of tax is becoming something that's talked at tables. Advisors are talking to their clients' accountants. We didn't really see that. Well, we weren't in the industry 30 years ago, but I'm in it over 20. So, again, another thing is that whole relationship. People are looking for value and, how the boomers behaved, what is Gen X looking for? What are the millennials, Gen Y? It's interesting because there's a whole psychology of money and what people are looking for. And now we have kids who are being born, in a digital AI generation. So things just keep changing. And I think it's really exciting to watch those trends and see how they impact who you do your best work with and how you want to run your business.
Hmm. I do too. And I think it's exciting and it's overwhelming. And that's why we need people like you, Karen, who can just kind of be that calming outside perspective to help you make sense of it all and move forward in the ways that you want to move forward. Is
Yeah.
there, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I appreciate that because I think sometimes when you have, I call it hair on fire and you're doing this and you're doing this and you're doing that, sometimes it isn't rocket science. It's the simplicity of focus and then accountability, and that builds the momentum.
Right. Well, Karen, is there anything that I haven't asked you yet that you think is important to this conversation or to kind of round us out?
No, I would just say that there's no right and wrong. There are many people out there that are doing things, advisors their own way, and they're really successful. But you touched on something. If you want to scale, and I think that's where I really like to talk to advisors, advisory teams. If you want to scale, what do you need in place to take the next best steps for what those goals are? So what does success look like to you? Some people it's taking Fridays off in the summer so they could go golfing. And you
Hmm.
think, well, that sounds rather specific, but if that's part of the success picture, then let's say it out loud and figure it out. How are we going to make that happen? So again, there's not necessarily a right and wrong, but where do you want to go with your business? I think that's the biggest and most interesting question. You've
Hmm.
had some success. Where do you want to go?
I have to ask you, was that somebody's real goal to take Fridays off in the summer to go
Yes.
golf?
Yes,
I love
it
that.
was not a goal that it was a he that he brought to the table, but the symptom was overwhelm, working
Hmm.
hard. And then as we talked, it's like, well, what would a reward for working hard be in your life?
Mm.
I can't remember the last time. I have a golf membership, I barely get there. So we
Hmm.
talked about why don't we integrate that with taking clients out?
Hmm.
Deepening the relationship, spending time with your top clients. Whom of your top 30 clients are golfers? Let's start booking some golf time. So in that case, we made it business and pleasure. And to
Hmm.
be honest, Hillary, he met a lot of people by doing that. As you're golfing with people and you're getting to know, there's conversations you can have. I'm a real believer in having very specific conversations. And it's a nice time. It's not always pushing business forward, but it
Right.
was good for him. For some people, it's health, and that's important. So you know what are you doing for your health? Where in your calendar is there time to work on the business? I'll talk about that, but where's the health time?
Mm. Oh, I love that story. That's such a great story. I kind of got
Yeah,
chills.
yeah. We
It's a good one.
stumbled into it, but it ended up being a very positive thing for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Karen, if people want to get in touch with you or learn more about you, where are the best ways for them to do that?
They can reach me on LinkedIn. There are a lot of advisors on LinkedIn, so I am always on LinkedIn. They can just look me up. Karen Creighton. I'm Creighton. So my email's kc@karencreighton.ca. And otherwise, my website's karencreighton.ca. And I run a group for developing advisors too, because not everybody's ready for one on one coaching or team. I work with advisors and their teams. I think that's, part of my background's a little bit different because I helped advisors build and manage a big team. So sometimes when I work with advisors, I'll work with their ops person. I might meet them one week, their ops person another week. So it really depends what they are, what they need. But if advisors want to spend more time with clients, someone like me, I can come in and spend more time, training their team, sorting their team out, building the team, all of those good things. And again, if the advisor is the vision, there's a rocket fuel model I really like. If they would want to be the visionary, that's the role. But how's it all getting integrated? That's when coaching can really help.
Mhm. Well, I have really enjoyed this conversation, Karen. This has been great. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be asked, Hillary. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. If you're eager to market your business in a way that feels good and actually gets results, sign up for the Finance Marketing Podcast newsletter in the show notes so you never miss another episode. If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening app and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you back here next Friday.